Hello everyone, today I'm here to review for you Heat Pedal to the Metal. This is a racing game where you are driving around, changing gears, and hopefully not spinning off at corners. Asmodee sent me this to review for you, so let's jump into roughly how the game plays so you get a gist of it, and then I'll give you my pros and cons so you know whether it's going to be a game you should add to your collection or not. So to start off, you're going to be, most importantly, choosing the colour you're going to play as. There's 6 different colours included in this, and there are some extra ones available via an expansion. Now, you choose your colour and you're going to put your car onto the starting grid in a randomised order, and you're going to take the playmat, the set of cards, and also the gear stick of that colour. Depending on the track that you're playing, and there's 4 included, there's the USA, France, Great Britain and Italy, well, depending on that, you're going to shuffle in some stress cards into your deck and take a certain number of heat cards. Pretty much always going to be 6 of those, and they start in your engine. The name of the game is Heat, and that is what you're going to be using to sort of push your luck, do extra things on turns. But let's go through how an entire round/turn works for a player. So at the start of the round, all players simultaneously are going to choose whether they want to go up or down in gear. Now at the start of the race, you're going to be in first gear and you probably want to go into a higher gear so you can zoom off the line. You are at this point allowed to spend 1 heat card from your engine into your discard pile to go up or down 2. But you can do 1 movement for free, so you can go from 3rd gear up to 4th, or maybe from 3rd gear down to 2nd. But if you really need to go slowly quick, you can drop from 3 all the way down to gear 1 by just spending 1 heat. Depending on what gear you're in, if you're in 1, 2, 3 or 4, that's the number of cards you must play from your hand for that round. While those parts are done simultaneously, everyone now goes in turn order, starting with whoever is furthest ahead, and if 2 players are next to each other on the same space, it's whoever's on the racing line, which is indicated on the board. So what do? Well, you reveal those cards and find out how far they're actually going to go. So let's say they're in 2nd gear and they've played a 5 and a 3. They're going to move a total of 8 down the track. At this point, if you're in last position, or if you're playing with more than 5 players, the last 2 positions, you can, if you want, and often you do, you can move a bonus 1 space. You also get 1 bonus cooldown, and we'll come on to that now, because in the next step, you can choose whether you want to pay a heat card from your engine into your discard pile to boost, which effectively allows you to play an extra card. Then you can cool down. If you were in last place and get that bonus 1 from that, or you're in 1st or 2nd gear, you can put some heat cards from your hand back into your engine, because otherwise you're going to start getting your hand clogged up with these unplayable heat cards, and that's not something you want, because you need that heat in your engine to be able to change gears rapidly, boost, and we'll come on to one final thing that they do in a second. Once you've finished your movement, you are either just behind, so 1 space behind another car, or alongside them, you can slipstream, and this gives you a bonus 2 movement, and it doesn't add to your speed, which is very important because when you go round corners on a turn, at the end of that turn, you work out how fast your speed was, and you compare it to the number on the corner. This can be absolutely fine, so let's say on the Great Britain map, there is a corner that's a 10. You can go up to 10, round that corner, speed-wise, absolutely fine. However, if you push your luck a little bit and maybe you're going 11, you'll need to spend the difference between the corner value and the speed value you're going at in heat cards. Otherwise, you spin off. Spinning off isn't the end of the world. It does, however, add stress cards to your deck, which are effectively, when you play them, means you draw from the top card of your deck, and it's a random number then. You don't get to perfectly plan what you are trying to do. You'd also drop down to 1st gear and go back to the space just before the corner, where you're rejoining the track for the next turn. Now all you have to do is choose if you want to discard any cards from your hand, though you can't discard stress or heat cards that are in your hand, and then you draw back up to 7 cards. So once you've done all that, then it's the next player's turn and the next player's turn. You are simply trying to do mostly 2 laps of a track that you can make it however many laps you want round the track, and whoever has crossed that finish line and gone furthest is going to be in first place, second place, etc, etc. And you then have found the winner. You can sort of string them together and you get points depending on if you're in first, second, etc, and sort of tie it together in like a mini championship. But otherwise you can just have done that one race, pack up, and a winner be crowned as the Heat Pedal to the Metal champion. So that is how you play Heat. On a turn you are changing gear, playing that number of cards. You're in gear 3, play 3 cards, moving that far around the track, trying to slipstream, maybe boosting, maybe spinning off on a corner, or just getting round it perfectly and all that sort of goodness. So let's go through some pros and cons to see why you should be adding it or not adding it to your collection. So just for the record, I do like the game, but let's start off with some reasons you might not enjoy Heat as much as me. There are 9 steps to a turn, and this really does mean that you can put some people off while teaching it. It sounds like so much is going on, they need to be aware of so much stuff, but really emphasise when you're going through it, most of this doesn't happen on a turn. For instance, one of the steps is effectively check if you're the person in last, do you want an extra movement and do you want to be able to do an extra cooldown, putting a heat card from your hand back into your engine. Like, you're always going to take the cooldown, but whether or not you want to do that extra movement because maybe there's a corner coming up or something, that's up to you. And only the person in last is ever going to need to think about that step. So all of a sudden, that's down to 8 steps. You might not ever discard, so now it's down to 7. If you're not near someone, you're not slipstreaming, so that's down to 6 steps. And actually, then it starts to be, you change gear, you play some cards, you move that number, and that's 3 of them, and drawing cards up at the end of your turn is a 4th thing. So there's not much else that you're really having to sort of think about. But I definitely have seen people, when explaining the game, sort of go, whoa, there's a lot to go on here. So, you know, that first round, that first couple of rounds, can be a little bit of people just getting their heads around it. The rulebook suggests a way to get around this is almost to do a learning game where you have 1 lap. But if you have got that speedy play where someone can do their turn quickly, people are picking their cards simultaneously quickly, this is rocket round the table. But it does mean the first game or 2, or maybe the first game, and when you've introduced a new player to the mix, it just slows down and the game length feels a bit off. As soon as everyone around the table knows what they're doing, it definitely goes quicker. Even in like halfway through my first game, I was doing my turns quite a lot quicker than I was at the very first round sort of thing. It was noticeable how much quicker I'd gotten. So if someone's maybe going to be off-put by that, just bear that in mind. And now we come to both a positive and a negative at the same time, and that's that Heat has loads of content in the box. Maybe too much content. Now there's a couple of reasons I'm saying it like this. First of all, it's fantastic that there's that much. Don't get me wrong, I think it's brilliant as I own the game. However, you have a load of different modules such as creating like your car, legends, which is like an AI thing, weather that you can add, a championship thing that allows you to string races together. And for a lot of people, I think a chunk of that is going to stay in the box. Then you've got 4 maps. Most board games like this would maybe come with 1 map that's double-sided, so you've got 2, 1 board that's double-sided, 2 maps. This has got 2 of those from the sort of get-go, so you've got 4 maps to play on straight out of the bat. That's amazing for the content in the box, but I think you could probably have got away with having 2 tracks, so 1 board, 2 maps, drop a load of those modules and make the overall box cheaper for more people to be able to actually go and buy the game, and then they could get the rest as an expansion. I think that could have been a good way of doing it, because I think it's not a cheap game, Heat, so I think, you know, that could have been good. However, once you've got the game, it's fantastic. I mean, the fact that 4 maps are included is really awesome for variety's sake. Not only do they look very differently visually with different colours used, but also, like I suggested, I said earlier, the Great Britain map has one corner that's a 10. And you switch over to, I think, like the French map, and the highest value on a corner is a 5. Now, that means you're going to be able to go very quick on, like really fast, in 4th gear for a lot longer on that GB track versus the France track. And it's just interesting how that actually changes things up. And the production quality of all the stuff included is really high. Be that the cards, the cars, the gear sticks, the player mats. Okay, they're thin card, but they're still graphically done very nicely. The steps are across the top of every player board in really sort of very intuitive writing. Like, it's got the gear stick change, and it's not just like a gear stick symbol. It's got, are you going up or staying where you are, going up or down 1, or are you spending a heat, because it's got the heat symbol next to up or down 2 gear change. It's just, a lot of that makes it really intuitive. Even when you're teaching people, you can just go along the top of the player mat, and I really like that. It looks really good when it hits the table. The only thing was, I was a little surprised at maybe how small the cars were, but they fit the spaces perfectly, so they couldn't be much bigger. I think maybe just from pictures I'd seen online, I expected them to be a little bigger, so it was more of a surprise than anything that let me down. There's a few things that are included in the box that don't necessarily needed to have been there in a base game. The Legends module allows you to play solo, so probably would be included these days, but also means you can actually have, like in a 2-player game, which I didn't enjoy as much as when you had, say, at least 4 players. You can actually go and have still 4, 5 cars on the track, which is much better, I found, for being able to like do much more slipstreaming, and it just seemed much better experience having other cars on the track, even if 2 or 3 of them were AI. So that's a cool module, a really fun one that I'd recommend you using if you're at like 2 or 3 players, but I really would suggest trying to get like 4 players at least round the table for Heat, because that just felt like a really good number of people sort of dipping and diving, changing, and, you know, going around the outside on a corner, that sort of stuff. Another one of the inclusions, which could definitely have been an expansion stuff, are the weather modules. I really like the way they tweak things up. Oh, it's like, oh, this section over here, when you slipstream, oh, you can do an extra space. Or this corner, oh, it's, I don't know, thematically, maybe it's a bit wet, so you need to take it a bit slower. It's now a -1 or a +1. So that corner that you were sort of normally having to really go down to 1st gear for, all of a sudden, oh, maybe I could just go through on 2nd gear. That sort of stuff. So they change up the sort of experience nicely. As I said, I don't think everyone's going to use that all the time. Some of that will stay in the box until you've played all the maps a few times, which is why I sort of think it could have been expansion content. But I like that it's in the box. I'm on that sort of on the fence here of, I can see why they've included it because it's really good, but I could see if they hadn't included it, maybe the price point could have been a bit lower and allowed more people to play. I know I keep coming back to that, but really like that module as well. And one thing that not many games do, which I have to give props to Heat for, is say, what can I do about including new players when maybe I'm experienced? I've played a few games, but someone new's coming in, and a rulebook suggests dropping 1 or 2 Heat cards from your engine. So you're supposed to say get 6, you take 5, but everyone else or the new players get 6. And actually that made quite a difference. Well, I did that with new players that are not sort of huge gamers, and I ended up coming 3rd in that. That 1 extra heat just meant at times I couldn't go as quick round corners. I couldn't boost as much as them. And this really is a game that really rewards you for using your heat from your engine at the right times, not quite running out, but using a lot of it, boosting that bit extra, going a bit faster around corners and spending heat as a result. It really encourages you not to quite push your luck, but to at least use that heat. It is the name of the game after all. So having just one or maybe even two less really does put a sort of experienced player at a bit of a disadvantage compared to a brand new player. So that was a really good leveler that I'm glad they included that in the rules. So I have to shout that out because not many games sort of really think about, oh, what about when you introduce someone new, where you could definitely pull away from them otherwise. So overall, I have absolutely loved playing Heat. You'll have heard many good things about it, and I think it all rings true. I do think that first game is going to be a bit slow, but it does tell you to only do one lap, which means you understand how the game plays, but it does feel like it's just a bit short. But then you can actually play a proper race and get up to speed, making sure those turns aren't too slow, and that's where the game really thrives. You want more players around the table. The Legends module does a nice little sort of job though of adding in AI cards, because extra cars on the track definitely seems to be where the game shines. Like I say, if you are one of those people that is trying to introduce games to new players, it does sound like a lot and it will put maybe some people off. I also think the price point could have been lower and dropped a load of the content from this into a mini expansion, and I don't think the game would have suffered that much for it, especially as if you enjoy it you could have just gone and bought that additional content. I've really liked it, 100% staying in the collection for that sort of racing experience. I've got other ones like Downforce, but this one just feels a little bit more like you are racing your car. You are changing gear, you are throwing it into corners, you are risking it with those stress cards. It's full of really good things, and being able to spice things up with stuff like the weather module, I think it's got a lot of longevity in the box as well. So let me know what you think of Heat. Do you agree with me if you've played? Has this helped you decide if it's going to be a game you should add to your collection? Let me know in the comments section below. And until next time, well, keep the pedal to the metal and have a brilliant day gaming.